24. During the reign of Hasmonean leader John Hyrcanus in the late 2nd century BCE, the Edomites converted to Judaism and were assimilated into the Jewish people. 125. Samaria. The majority of Samaria's people in the 1st century CE are thought to have been Samaritans. 126. Samaria was also inhabited by Jews. In southern and central Samaria, 83, native Hellenized Semitic people descendants of Macedonians who settled in the city of Samaria under Alexander the Great. Colonists flocked there under the Roman governor of Syria, Gabinius, and mercenaries of the neighboring populations who were brought to Sebast by Herod the Great. 126. Samaritans and Jews had a hostile relationship. Josephus describes one instance in which Jews from the Galilee were attacked by Samaritans in Galilee while traveling to a festival in Jerusalem, resulting in the death of one of them. 126. Coastal plain, Paralia. The coastal plain, or Paralia as it was known since the Hellenistic period, did not have a Jewish majority. With the exception of a brief period of Hasmonean rule, Herod's reign, and Agrippa's brief reign, the region was not under Jewish rule for the most of the Second Temple period. The coast was home to mostly Hellenistic pagan settlements during Josephus' day, some of which were particularly significant from an economic, cultural, and political standpoint. Joppa was the only Jewish city on the coast and remained so up until the First Jewish-Roman War, 66-73 CE, when there were significant Jewish minorities in Caesarea and Jamia, and to a lesser degree, in Ascalon and Ptolemy and other settlements along the coast. 127. Total numbers. The number of Jews residing in the world and in Judea in ancient times is almost impossible to determine as it is with other ancient populations, and research in that area has fallen out of scholarly favor in recent years. Nonetheless, a few academics have offered estimates over the years using different approaches. 128. In Judea, Brochi estimated that there were not much more than 1 million people living in Palestine during Roman and Byzantine times. By multiplying the estimated population of the 26 towns that were known during the Roman-Byzantine period, based on projected population density, by 3, using the assumption that the urban population made up around a third of the total population. 129, 128. According to Seth Schwartz, the most responsible estimates put the pre-modern sustainable population of Palestine at about 1 million, a figure that was attained in the middle of the 1st century, with about half of them being Jews. 130, according to ZEF Safra. At this point we do not have exact information regarding the population of Provincia Judea during the Roman period. He asserts that there were more people living in Palestine than 1 million people suggested by Brochi. 131, 128, although McGinn cautions that it is nearly impossible to estimate Judea's carrying capacity. The estimate is that Palestine's agricultural population at the same time period may have reached up to 1 million people, not all of whom were Jews. Also, he suggested a maximum population range for Jerusalem and Caesarea of 70,000 to 100,000 and 38,000 to 47,500 respectively. 128, worldwide. In the 13th century, Christian writer Bar Hebraeus claimed that 6,944,000 Jews were counted in the Claudius census, which was conducted in the middle of the 1st century CE. Salo Whitmire Baron asserted that there were 8 million Jews in the 1st century, based on Bar Hebraeus' estimate of 7 million Jews living inside the Roman Empire and adding an estimated million people living outside the empire. However, these figures are much disputed by contemporary scholars. 128, material culture. As archaeological evidence reveals, Jewish communities in Judea, Galilee, and Gaulonitis were quite divided by cultural attitudes but were interconnected by religious customs and, likely, beliefs. Workshops for kitchen pottery, standardized oil jars, and household or community ritual baths, mikvot, show that Jews began to incorporate explicitly religious practices and attitudes into their homes and everyday lives as early as the 1st century BCE. They started using stone vessels and a particular new type of oil lamps in the latter 1st century BCE and early 1st century CE to further distinguish and identify themselves. However, in the affluent neighborhoods of Jerusalem, the wealthy adopted the use of decorated tableware, Italian cooking utensils, foreign eating customs, and the construction of lavish display tombs, all of which reflect foreign classicizing practices and attitudes. These findings are rare in Judea, the Jewish Galilee, and Gaulonitis. 132, burial. Second Temple period ossuaries. Second Temple period ossuaries discovered in Jerusalem, Israel Museum. Kerfers ossuary. The Kerfers ossuary discovered in South Jerusalem. It mentions Joseph ben Kerfers of New Testament fame, high priest from 18 to 36 CE in contrast to earlier and later Jewish burial practices. The two acceptable types of burial during the late Second Temple period, 1st 2nd centuries BCE and CE, were primary burial in coffins and secondary burial in ossuaries. 133. For primary burial, coffins were placed in coffin. After a while, bones were collected for secondary burial in coffin and placed in ossuaries. Ossuaries, which were cut from local limestone, were either kept on the floor or on shelves in specially carved niches in the walls of the tomb. It was common for the ossuaries to be decorated with ornaments that included typical motifs of the period. 134. In Jerusalem, for example, palm branches and flowers, especially the rosette, were typical motifs. Funerary inscriptions with names etched or inscribed in Hebrew or Greek ossuaries are commonly found on ossuaries and sometimes on tombs. 134. In Jerusalem, the monumental tombs of the Kidron Valley, photographed in 1862 by Francis Bedford. A number of especially lavish tombs were built around Jerusalem during the early Roman period. Examples are the so-called tombs of the Sanhedrin and the monumental tombs of the Kidron Valley. As a common practice in the Greco-Roman world, these tombs were built along ancient roads that have since disappeared. Scholars believe these tombs were built by individuals seeking to elevate themselves and their families in the eyes of Jews in both the land of Israel and the diaspora by employing temple-like architectural designs. 135. One of the most well-known sites of the period, also built near Jerusalem, is the rock-cut funerary complex known as the Tombs of the Kings, which may be associated with Helena Ovadia being. 136. According to Jewish law, Mishnah, Bava Batra Tractate, due to the sanctity of Jerusalem and the impurity of the dead, burial was only allowed beyond the city's walls and 50 cubits away. 137. When the city expanded, the cemeteries were removed, except for the graves of the house of David and Huldah. 138. It has been suggested that the Uzziah tablet, which says hither we brought the bones of Uzziah, king of Judah, not to be opened, might indicate that King Uzziah's tomb was relocated beyond the city's walls during this period. 139. Jericho's cemetery was also located outside the town's limits. 133. In rural Judea, the funerary complex of Der Edom, Western Samaria, modern-day Rabbani Hassan elaborate rock-cut tombs with designs resembling those found in Jerusalem were found in multiple sites in Western Samaria including Herbert Kirkush, Der Edav and Makata Abad, and in the western Hebron Hills, including Kerbat al-Simea, Raj Melfich and Kerbat el-Jof. The great similarity between these tombs, the Jerusalem tombs, and the lack of a local Hellenistic prototype have led the researchers to the assumption that the decorated tombs in Western Samaria and Western Mount Hebron are not the result of an internal development of the burial system there, but rather the result of a deliberate copying of the Jerusalem tombs at the special request of local, affluent families. 140, 141. Most researchers concur that these tombs date from the same period as the Jerusalem tombs that were served as a model for replication. However, Magen thinks otherwise. The visible difference in the quality of design and carving between the tombs indicates a chronological gap between them in his opinion, and therefore he suggests dating the tombs of West Samaria and the Western Hebron hills later than the Jerusalem tombs, at the end of the 1st century or the beginning of the 2nd century. Magen also raises the possibility that their viewing is connected to the flight of Jewish artisans to Samaria and the Hebron hills with the beginning of the siege of Jerusalem, and perhaps even a little earlier, when the construction enterprises in the city began to dwindle and many quarrymen were left without employment. 142, 141. Pelik Barkat suggests distinguishing between the rock-cut tombs of Western Samaria and those of Western Hebron hills. In her opinion, the Western Samaria tombs are closer to the Jerusalem style, and imitate them. The Hebron Hills tombs, in comparison, do not try to imitate the faked decorations of the Jerusalem tombs, but are influenced by them to a certain degree, and display Judean and Nabatean influences at the same time. In her opinion, the tombs should be dated to a date before the destruction of the temple in 70 CE, although it is possible that the tradition of decorating in the Jerusalem style continued even after that. The phenomenon indicates that the adorned tombs of the Jewish elite in Jerusalem had an impact on the local elites in the towns and rural communities of Judea. 141. See also Archaeology of Israel, History of Ancient Israel and Judah, History of the Jews in the Roman Empire, Intertestamental period, Jerusalem during the Second Temple period, Second Temple Judaism, Timeline of Jewish history, references.
Good. I have to read again later, because that's too many information. I have it open here somewhere. This one, but I will stop the video and charging. I think I need to read Second Temple Judaism. I have it here. Second Temple Judaism, I think, then read about Second Temple after that. But my papers is a big mess. It's a big mess, so I need some time to read it. So I will charge my camcorder and upload. I'm still uploading. I need some time to look my papers.